Oh. Besides that, go for it, folks.
If no one is going, so I'm pretty familiar. Sorry, my name's Adam. I live in Alberta, Canada. So I'm pretty familiar with how the reservation works for BC parks and national parks. That said, I've never used a reservation for Peter Lougheed. So that would be for, like, I guess for Bolton Creek potentially, or some of the other places there. So there's some backcountry sites. Could you just describe what that's like? Is it similar to BC Parks, or is there anything else to that one? It's a 90 rolling, I think, but that's about all I know.
Yeah, I can actually quickly show you the Alberta site. Austin, can you make me a?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
It is the Alberta park system is kind of the oddball out. So BC and national parks use the same kind of booking system under the cover. So if you look at National Park for Parks Canada and BC, it's basically the same thing. Alberta Parks, they will have this. Sorry, I'll just take a moment to get logged in. They'll have the same little kind of queue system that the national parks have. So if it's busy, you'll kind of get in line. It doesn't do kind of that queue you up where like everyone logs in after at 8 o'clock at 7:30, and then it assigns you a role. It basically you click on it and it'll kind of throttle people going into the website. So the first part you mentioned, yes, it is a 90-day booking window. So basically right now we're booking up to February 19th. Well, that's not 90 days. I know they're doing some refresh on their website, so maybe that's why this date is off here. But basically you come to this, reserve your stay, and there's two main parts that are going to be that you're going to be interested in. One is for Bolton Creek. So you'd click, okay, I want to start typing Bolton. It'll give you Bolton Creek Campground. You can pick whatever your arrival date is. And it looks like, yeah, right now it's booking up actually to April 26th, which is more accurate 90 days. But so you pick whichever your arrival departure date, click search, and then it'll come back with, okay, here's Bolton Creek Front Country Campground. And then you can go on and right now you can't book because it's closed, it's not available. But any of the sites that are available will be in green, and you just like pick whichever site you want. And you can also like check out the availability calendar to see, if you're looking for something you can't quite find something that's available, you can, look to see what's available. You can even see a little picture of what the campsite looks like. And for most cases, it's going to be like, yeah, I mean, whether you want service or electrical power. And then once you've picked a site, you'll actually have like a little reserve it button here, or add to cart down here. You click on that, and then it'll go into your cart, and you can then check out and pay for it. For camping, I probably, like if you're camping at Bolton, there are these sites here. This is kind of the E-Loop. These aren't necessarily the nicest campsites. They're kind of packed in quite a bit, but they're close to the Bolton store. So the Bolton store is actually right here, and they have electrical service for a lot of these campsites. So if you need a place to charge, if you want some nicer campsites that are a little bit further away, there's A-Loop, which is right here. There's a little bit of a hill you have to hike up and down to get to the store, but these are some nice kind of private sites if you want to camp up there. If for whatever reason, if you're during the week in the summer, you shouldn't really have any problem getting a spot at Bolton. Weekends, particularly if it's a long weekend, it will probably book up pretty quick. Worst case, if you can't find any spots at Bolton, there are first come, first serve campsites at Lower Lake Campground right here. There's also Interlakes, or not Interlakes, Mount Searle Campground, which is tenting only, which is right here. And then there's also Interlakes Campground, which is right here, which is also first come, first serve. I found even if you're there on a long weekend, there will be a handful of sites that are generally available in some of the first come first serve. It's rare that every single campground in all Peter Lougheed is booked solid. The trail that we're basically Elk Pass Trailhead is right about here. So you're like I said, there's a little bit of a hike to get up to Bolton, but the other campgrounds are pretty close.
It's easy to hitch that road too. If you're at the campground and you want to zoom into the store, there's a lot of cars traveling. It's like a couple
Yeah.
minutes in the car.
The other thing is, so for backcountry campground camping, it's slightly different. So you'll basically click on this backcountry camping option, and then again, you can pick, actually, it's easier to do it from the front where you can say, yeah, backcountry camping, what your arrival departure date is, hit search. And this will give you kind of a giant map view of all of Alberta. So if you can kind of zoom in, and the main campsites that you're going to be looking for when it comes to the backcountry is there's Point, which is about maybe a kilometer or two off trail, but it's a nice little campground. So basically the formal Great Divide Trail basically comes along, you basically hike along the river, or sorry, the lake edge here, and then you hike along this kind of trail, and which then comes up to the Forks Backcountry Campground. But if you want a campsite that's pretty close to the lake and everything, you can camp here at Point. There's also campgrounds at Forks, and then the formal route of the Great Divide Trail then kind of goes up this way to Turbine Canyon, and then over North Kananaskis Pass into BC. You can camp across the border in BC here, random camping. There's no permit or anything required in Height of the Rockies, but you can also camp at Turbine. It's a nice campground up here. If you are doing the Northover Ridge alternate, instead of going this way around the lake, you'll go this way around the lake. And then basically here there's Hidden Lake, and then the trail kind of goes up this way. Then there's Astor Lake backcountry, and then you hike around kind of the lake and then up onto Northover Ridge, which is right along here. You can camp at Northover Tarns in Height of the Rockies here. If you do, just they're really keeping an eye on impact, so leave no trace as much as possible. There are no trees, so there's no place to do bear hang, so you'll definitely want an Ursack if you're camping here. And then a lot of folks will come down and then hike or either camp at Three Isle Lake backcountry, or if you go through the South Kananaskis Pass, there's a BC Parks campground called Beatty Lake, located right around here, and it's no permits or reservations required.
Beatty is really nice too. It's one of the nicest swimming lakes on the whole trail.
Does that answer your question, Adam?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it answers what was one of my other questions about Northover Ridge.
Yeah.
So it includes.
One thing actually, I will just say it's a little bit different. So if I click Point backcountry and I pick the campground, the way it works is you just need to click any of these permits, and then you can like add however many adults or what have you. They don't, for the backcountry sites, they don't link it to a specific campsite. So in the front country, you actually have to pick, I'm going to be in E12 or A16. For backcountry, you just pick one of the permits that are available, and then when you get to the campsite, you just pick whichever site you want. They're not, like, for example, permit A is not tied to site 1 at the campsite, and then just click add to cart, and it'll give you a bunch of details around how long it's going to take to hike and what the trail rating is, and then you sign in and make your purchase.
A quick question about food, the situation in Peter Lougheed. Is there like a place to, I know there's a little store to get like odds and ends. Is there a place to eat, like a more like established restaurant or something?
I mean, so if you look, so right here at the Bolton store, I think was that Bolton store right up here. I mean, they've got ice cream. I think they've got like little mini pizzas and hot dogs. So I mean, like, you could eat a meal there. It's going to be a pretty light meal. I mean, one option if you want, and if you have, like, for example, if you're taking a 0 in Bolton, is you could probably pretty easily hitchhike up to Kananaskis Village. It's maybe about 20 minutes, 25 minutes away. So it's a little bit up here, up Highway 40 to basically, yeah, right in here. And this will have full service. Like they've got, there's a hotel here, restaurant, post office. Yeah, and you can go to a pretty fancy restaurant here if you want. Their buffet is amazing, for like their breakfast buffet, at the restaurant at the Pomeroy Hotel. And there's a lot of traffic going both ways, so you can get up here pretty easily if that's what you want to do.
I
At
can't
the-
believe you know all this stuff.
Did you have a question on Northover? You started asking one earlier.
You guys kind of answered it. It was like I was kind of curious as to whether the Northover turns back down at about Three Isles Lake, or if it continues on South Kananaskis Pass, and what you guys would recommend, or if there's anything in particular about that alternate I should know.
Yeah, if you're doing Northover alternate, actually I can just pull it up.
I've done it a couple times now. Coming out of Bolton, I would definitely stay at the Tarns just on the BC side. Right after that, you actually climb up and onto Northover Ridge. Going all the way up and then over Northover Ridge and then down to Three Isle is a pretty huge day. Most people stay at the Tarns, and then the next day you can even make it to BC. So then you don't actually need reservations for the first 2 nights on Section C if you do that.
Yeah, like there's the campground here at Astor Lake, and I mean they just redid it last summer, so I haven't been there since they redid it, so I don't know. It was a nice campground before, so hopefully they made it even nicer. But yeah, the Tarns are like right, if you can see right here, and then you can kind of see the trail goes over Northover Ridge, drops down to Three Isle, and then here's the Beatty Lake, and then you drop down here, and then you join the main GDT on Leroy Creek, right around here.
I've also heard that the trail through Turbine Canyon is really beautiful. I'm not entirely sure. Like I have a very it's not an ultra fast schedule, but it's pretty fast. So from Mount Sorel, I think I was supposed to be headed to Burstall.
Yeah, so from in a 1 day from Mount Sorel to Burstall, that would be I mean, if you're a really fast hiker, but that would be a pretty long day, because it's probably getting close to about 40 kilometers. Because I think I remember because I did Turbine to Burstall, and that was about 26, and it's about 15 or probably about 14 from North Interlakes here, Trailhead, to Turbine. So yeah, that's probably a good 40K so to do that in 1 day.
Yeah, I
Do you have
think
any? Sorry, go ahead.
if going all the way from Sorel to Burstall on Northover would be that's a lot of elevation gain. Like that's a pretty huge day. I think there's less on the official route. I mean, there's still a chunk, but if you can buy yourself a day just at the Tarns and Northover, that'd be a good way to break it up. If you can't, I get that too. But I think if you already are committed to that long of a day, I think Northover Ridge would be pretty excruciating. It's probably an extra at least 1,000 meters gain.
Yeah, that helps to answer my question.
Okay.
So I appreciate that. So I potentially could break the days, or I might just take the route through Turbine. Would you be able to comment? Like it's a beautiful, I think it's a beautiful way as well.
It's super nice. I did it last year because when I did the GDT, I did Northover. And then this past year, I basically did a loop out of Bolton where I took the official GDT and then went south on the alternate. Both are spectacular. It's not like you're missing out one way or the other.
Sounds good. My only other question in terms of reservations, I had some after, but I'll kind of wait till everybody else is maybe gone. was about, so in section D, we Emma Ski
And the
Pass
skiwi,
and
yeah.
yeah, and the house floodplain. So in the webinar, you guys sort of mentioned that this is a random camping permit through the national park to call. That would be on Monday when the backcountry reservation. So after doing all the reservations, getting all the sites that you can book online, my understanding is then I would just call office. Lake Louise is faster to book those over the phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll ask for like and they'll ask you, it's like, well, what, and usually most of them are fairly familiar with the GDT, especially if you're calling the actual park office, like, or the trails office. If you call like the national 1-800 hotline, then they probably don't. But if you're talking to the people in Lake Louise, and then you can say, yeah, I need a permit, and this is kind of the Amiskewee River or valley, and you need a random permit kind of to camp anywhere. Pretty much once you get over Queetnock Pass, you need a permit to kind of camp along here. And then there's a section here around like Collie Creek where they've got the kind of the reroute until we hopefully sort out what's happening with the bridge here. This is all just BC forestry land, so you can camp wherever you want along here. And then once you get back into Howes Pass and the river, or sort of the floodplain, you'll need random permits along here. And I think for most of these, like I'd still get them relatively quickly. You don't call them at 8 o'clock in the morning because they'll be busy with everything else. But if you leave a message, they'll usually get back to you pretty quick. If not later in the day, maybe the day after. But it's usually a good idea to get your random permits. Some areas they limit the number of parties in a certain part of the park. I'm not sure if they have any restrictions for Howes or Amiskewee Valley. But usually you want to get in as soon as you can, because sometimes like they'll say, hey, if there's more, like they won't issue more than like 5 parties a night in this section, for example, and they have different kind of capacity rules for different parts of the park. Worst case, because they're based on parties, not necessarily numbers. If you call in and they say, actually, sorry, that night we've issued the 5 permits that we do for this area. Usually going on a Facebook group and saying, hey, does anyone have that, one of the party permits for that particular night? And then you can basically, as long as you group with them, you can kind of go on under their party, if you will. This is more of an issue for places. There's a couple places on section E where they kind of have that limitation. But that's if you do encounter that's an option as well.
Hey Kelly, this is Dave Conley. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Just on your note there for the same conversation topic around Howes, for those permits, is there a cost to those?
Yeah, I think they still charge you the $12 for the random permit plus the booking fee.
All right, thanks. That's what I thought.
Alex, I see you have your hand up. What's your question?
Hey guys, question about if I understand this right. So the permits are you can book 90 days in advance, is it correct?
For
It
BC and
depends
Alberta.
on where. So Alberta, and then there's where. So Alberta is 90 days rolling. So
Okay.
that's the ones we just showed, like Peter Lougheed and Turbine Canyon. BC Parks, which really the only one you need is if you're staying in Assiniboine, that's a 4-month rolling window. And then Parks Canada, which is the vast majority, they open. So Waterton is already open. They opened that on Wednesday. For BC or for Banff, Kootenay, and Yoho, that opens on Monday, and it's for the entire summer. So there's no rolling window for Parks Canada. They book up the entire summer starting on that day, and then I believe Jasper is February 1st.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of different dates. Yeah.
Yeah,
So the most, yeah. Oh, go ahead, Austin.
Oh, I was just going to say, so Banff, Kootenay, Yoho, Parks, that'll be for section C, and the first half of section D if you're doing the Queetnock alternate. And that's it. And then Jasper will be for section E and F. It's
Okay,
February
understood.
1st.
Yeah, got you.
How do you put your
Area-
hand up? Sorry, Austin, how do you put your hand up? It's Dave Conlon.
On the very bottom, there's a thing that says reactions, and if you click on it, raise hand is one of them. But
Okay,
whatever works for people.
I just didn't want to interrupt people if they got a flow going. So I had a question in the Q&As about if you knew of any places to camp in the Saskatchewan River Crossing Junction area.
Gotcha. Like rather than staying at the resort.
Yeah.
Let me take a peek. They did. So previously you used to be able to camp kind of right at the trailhead of Owen Creek. That, as far as I know, is no longer allowed. The border with where Banff was a bit contentious, and I think that's now part of Banff National Park. So the closest would be Michelle Lakes, which is still the climb up Owen Pass. Otherwise, it would be on Section D. Trying to think,
I
probably.
believe, yes, I believe that I'd have to check the specific rule because definitely not in Banff, right? So basically this kind of green area here, this is all still Banff National Park. Once you kind of cross this line here, you're now into the Job Klein, or sorry, no, this is Upper Clearwater Ram public land use zone for Alberta.
Mhm.
If it's similar to most of the public land use zones, as long as you're a kilometer away from the highway, you can usually random camp. Let me, if we have a moment, I can look up to see if they have any specific rules for this particular area. But generally, as long as you're a kilometer on the public land use zone side, you can random camp.
And that's kind of what I was hoping for my plan. Just wondered how that section there where you've on your map, just where you got your little hand there. Is it possible to ford across the river at that point, or is that just an unreasonable expectation?
I mean, yeah, I mean, like this is the North Saskatchewan, and it is a pretty big river, even up this part.
Looks like there might be a bridge or something there, though, right where you're.
Yeah. I don't like some of these are like equestrian trails as well, so
Hmm.
some of them may not necessarily be for people.
Okay. The reason I asked.
There is I
an
believe
abandoned-
like there's the Thompson Creek Recreation Area,
Mhm.
and it looks like there's a campground there. Let me just quickly do a quick search.
It looked like there might have been an abandoned campsite, maybe just left to rehab on its own, someplace right on the park boundary there near the.
Yeah, there was one that was, and this is the one that Dawson was kind of mentioning, where it was kind of here. I mean, technically it was in Banff, but there was, I think, it wasn't as, I guess, contentious, but now it's basically, there used to be some random camping that was allowed even further up the valley into Owen Creek. Banff has since kind of changed that, so there's no random camping allowed in this area of Banff. But yeah, so I just quickly looked it up. Yeah, there is a campground at Thompson Creek Provincial Recreation Area. So that's, I guess, from the border, that's about 3K.
Okay, that's useful. Thank you.
On this topic, one additional site that I was considering was actually Glacier Lake. And it's a little bit of a detour if you can't ford the river. And in the webinar, you guys mentioned not to attempt that if it's early in the season. But this is about 12 kilometers away from Saskatchewan Crossing on a pretty easy trail. If you're interested in that site, that would be on Monday. That's in the Banff. It's included in the Banff area. So I was considering to stay there and have a zero there instead. But I sort of made some other plans.
Yeah,
I will say,
that's the campground that's located right here. But yeah, there is definitely would cautious that it's this kind of area. This ford is more designed for equestrian users. So it's definitely not. It's not for it. We wouldn't recommend people trying to ford the Howes River here because it is pretty deep and fast moving. Maybe like kind of September It
Yeah.
might be late enough that the water level is going to be low enough, but earlier in the season, kind of July, August, this is going to be pretty difficult to ford.
Yeah, there's section like when the year I was going through there, it was more than 6 feet deep. Like some people my age they went fully under because they were trying to get to Glacier Lake. But an alternative is basically kind of going to the highway and hiking back on the other way if you didn't want to spend a night at Saskatchewan Crossing.
I guess the only thing I would add is that if you're planning to if you have a resupply box at the crossing, I believe if you stay there, they offer you either I don't remember if it's free or a deep discount to hold your box. If you're not staying there, then it's actually quite a bit, if I recall. So
Yeah, free if you stay there, 50 if you don't.
Since we're kind of on section E, same question, or just a small little confirmation question. So 4 Point is right on the trail, I believe.
Mhm.
That one I think is reservable online, just the same way you would. I think these are now on Jasper reservations, so this would be on Thursday.
Yep.
My question would be for Avalanche. So this was one of the sites you guys said that I think they only allow 1 or 2 parties, and that the party could be several people, but they only allow 1 or 2 parties. On the internet, or at least on the site, when I'm looking, like kind of scrolling through and just looking at the reservation system, it looks like I can book Avalanche in the same time, but I think I also like maybe heard you guys say that this is one of the sites that you have to book on the telephone. So I don't know if this has changed or not. I believe it was through I'm trying to remember where exactly you would access there. Oh, there you go. No, I think it's lower. It's possibly this one. Yeah.
Moline Pass.
yeah, so Avalanche, Maryvaux, Schaefer, and Trapper Creek. I know that they used to do these kind of weird, in that it was kind of like there'd be like one party that could go to like basically if one person booked Avalanche, then they all filled up. I don't know if they've like segregated it a little bit, but this is one of the like the areas that I was mentioning earlier that, if you do find, when I try to book it, it's showing as unavailable and someone's already got the permit. I've seen a lot of success, and you'll usually see it on the Facebook group, people going back and forth. It's like, hey, I'm looking for the permit for August 2nd. Whoever's managed to get Maryvaux, or even people will advertise like in the couple of days after. It's like, hey, I managed to get the August 3rd for Maryvaux. Does anyone want to join me? So there's a little bit of horse trading back and forth to kind of combine. The only thing that because this is a like sensitive caribou area, is that Parks Canada does say if you're going to be a party for traveling through this area, you at least have to travel together, and that's just for this section. Like once you're through, then you can go your own separate ways. But really, what they're trying to do is minimize the number of kind of impacting events in the valley. So if it's a group of 2 people or a group of 7 people all going through at once, it's kind of one event from a Parks Canada perspective, as opposed to 3 or 4 different groups going through at separate times. So yeah, just if you do kind of go through that party mechanism, just stay together as you go through this area. And then, like I said, then you're free to go whichever way you guys want to go.
Have
So
you got any
Avalanche.
advice on how to do that, Kelly? How to try to stay together? If you joined up with somebody for a particular spot, let's say Avalanche,
Yeah.
how would you go about connecting with them other than Facebook? Is there any other? I mean, even if you did connect and you say, okay, yes, but you might be coming from different areas, different speeds. We're going to come along at 2 old guys at, and then the other fellow there is going to go at a high speed. So how do you actually end up at the same spot?
Yeah, I mean that's what I've seen online, is just the folks try to coordinate the best they can on Facebook. That's I don't know, Austin, if you're aware of any other channels where people have tried to connect and
No,
What's the,
we've been chatting about finding a way to connect people better for people that don't have Facebook, for example. We can do a call out on all our social media channels, asking people if they have these sites and what dates and if they want to share them. But this, I've never really heard of this being an issue. Every year, it seems like once people book these, they're like, I got Avalanche August 2nd. And then a bunch of people are like, okay, cool. We're all going to jump on with you. It's only one day, really, because you can get through the whole Moline Valley in a day.
Thanks, Austin. I guess my other question on that if if you don't get that site, is there any other alternatives to make it through there?
so I know that they had, I think there was one or two. Let me just see if I can pull on the Great Divide, the campsite list.
I thought I had read something in the book or in the guidebook on the Great Divide Trail there by Dustin, that there were some spots that were just out of the
Yeah,
park.
and that's there were, and that's why I'm just going to pull up because there is the campground list. There's like one or two kind of like slightly off trail campgrounds that Jasper has made available, and some years they do and some years they don't. Let me just.
Some of the horse camps have
Yeah.
special restrictions on them, and I don't know. Do you need to sort of you speak nicely to the guy and say, "Hey, look, it's all full. I'm coming through on this day. I need just one tent, and that's all I need." And hopefully they let me in, or because they got to give you a backcountry permit for that specific site too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see kind of these here where they've got yeah, Avalanche, Maryvaux, Mary Schaefer, and Trapper Creek that have this kind of one permit per night kind of restriction.
Yeah.
I don't see it. Maybe I was thinking of I think I was thinking about this one, the McCready Horse Camp.
Yeah.
As well as Klein. So these are basically some additional campsites that Jasper, they're like kind of like more like decommissioned sites or old site or kind of horse sites where they've kind of made them available for GDT hikers and you can get them through the park office.
Okay.
So I mean, like worst case, if you look at like the total, I mean, it is about this whole section is about if you look from 748 to 777. So it's about 30K through this one section. So, I mean, but I think like as Austin said, like I haven't heard any issues around. Like I know people, there's a lot of concern usually up ahead of time to say, oh my, there's only one permit per night and I didn't get it. Like I said, every summer there's a lot of like back and forth on either Facebook or Reddit, and that, like Austin said, we can put out a call to say, hey, the folks that have managed to get those permits, if you're willing, let us know, and we can provide contact details if people want to connect together and kind of share as they go through that section.
Thanks, Kelly. One more on those same sites. My itinerary has been going through there towards the end of August 31st, actually.
Yeah.
Is that a lower time frame or lower period of interest for people in that area, or is it overly complicated by the Brazeau loop and some of the other popular sort of mid?
Yeah, I'd say like because you're past quote the bubble such that it is for the Great Divide Trail through hikers.
Yeah.
I suspect that if you're looking to book these late August, you're probably not going to have a lot of competition. The Brazeau loop is a little bit it's further south. So I mean, if we look at kind of here's kind of like the Brazeau loop in this area.
Yeah.
And then you start getting into like Avalanche and Maryvaux are kind of all along this section right here. So
Right.
you will see some people that will kind of go along this trail and get out at was it
Boketon
Creek?
Yeah.
So this section can be a bit busier with some people coming out this way, but generally past this junction, you start getting some pretty it's pretty diehard hikers or GDT hikers that are really doing this section through here. Because for the longest time it was pretty it wasn't in that great shape. It was kind of let to kind of it wasn't being maintained. I know like we've had some trail crews through here over the past couple of years kind of cleaning this up so it's a bit nicer. But 2 or 3 years ago you read some of the trip reports and like people are basically holding their pack over their heads as they go through a bog to get from like one place to another. So it's there's not a lot of folks that are going to be in this area.
We had this kind of a grand vision that we might stay for a couple nights at one of those spots and then do a day trips up onto the Six Passes.
Mhm.
But they have a restriction on the number of nights you can stay in that area as well. That's part of that same restriction of one permit, right? So are you familiar with that? Can you explain that a little bit more?
The one night restriction, yeah, I'm not as familiar with that one. I know it's like definitely the one party per night, but it may just be as part of that, just so that they allow other groups to go through, that they only restrict you to booking one night.
Okay. I have to say, go ahead, Anderson.
Since we are talking about Six Pass, what do you guys think about the idea? I think you guys sort of mentioned this in the webinar. Since you're not allowed to camp on Six Pass, so from Avalanche all the way to kind of the beginning of Skyline to Evelyn Creek, that would be one crazy day. I'm just curious about Six Pass. Is it mostly above the tree line in like a subalpine alpine environment, or where it's a little bit easier to navigate, or is it also include like just dense bushwhacking? Because that would be, I would say, more of an issue then.
The navigation is quite simple. I'd say the micro navigation is where it's hard. Nowhere on the whole thing is the ground flat. There's just like alpine lumps where, one next step you're up 2 feet, the next step you're down 2 feet. So it's slow moving. And then kind of at the bottom of each pass is gonna be like a little bit of a creek in the drainage. Through there's some mild water crossings, but then kind of coming out of it, there's a bunch of spots where it's like kind of juniper that's like knee high. So you're doing like really high steps, but it's not a lot of bushwhacking like this. You're relatively high elevation the whole time. The hardest challenge is that there's no trail, so you kind of have to really be intentional with every step, which really makes your brain tired. And the fact that you're going over 6 passes, there's a lot of elevation gain, but it's really simple navigation.
With amount of like when you're going back down each pass, is there enough water source on that route?
There's tons of water.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so like I really enjoy kind of doing like scrambles and different route finding on some smaller stuff. So I like that kind of environment, but it depends on how long it'll be and how I feel. So I can always go the other way too.
Yeah. Afterwards, I think a lot of people ask about 6 passes. I have a lot of pictures from there. I'll send out a little album of what the terrain looks like to all the people on the call.
I mean, I will say like people have done it in a day. It's just, it is a long, hard day. So, just kind of judge your capabilities as best you can.
I've also heard you guys have done a lot of trail maintenance on that route in the last year even. So
through the Moline Valley.
Yeah,
we did a lot. There's about 2K right now that's not pristine, but the rest of it is quite good now.
Yeah, and that's working with Friends of Jasper National Park to get in there and clear trail.
How many people are on the call, guys? I don't want to take up too much on general discussion, but if I have your license to do so, I'd like to ask some more questions.
Yeah, there's 16 others. A couple of people have their hands up. Can we jump with them and then we'll swing back to you, Dave?
Yeah, you bet.
Cool. Alex, what's up?
How many, or do you know how many boxes or you would like to prefer to ship in advance to one of the sites? You have probably no, yeah. I know from the PCT, you have you send a couple of boxes out because like some sites they have no restricted food service or something else, and how it looks like on the trail himself. So that's is to get a little bit better idea in general.
Yeah, I'd say on average, people are doing 5, one at most resupply spot. So one in Coleman, one in Bolton Creek, one in Field or Lake Louise or Golden, wherever you're staying after that. One at Saskatchewan Crossing and one in Jasper. Jasper would be the best place if you didn't want to make a box at all. There's multiple grocery stores, lots of trail stores. You can buy new shoes there. So you can get away with not sending a box there. You can't really get away not sending a box to Peter Lougheed or to Saskatchewan Crossing. Saskatchewan Crossing, a resupply would cost you like several $100s. And you'd have a poor selection of food. And Peter Lougheed too, it's more of like a car camping setup, so they don't really have options to get a good resupply. They might have instant noodles and stuff, but it's not going to be ideal.
Yes.
Well, everybody's doing five boxes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think some of it is also like it depends on your appetite to like how many days do you want to spend chasing down resupply? Because like there are places like you in Peter Lougheed, like you could hitchhike to Kananaskis Village, and they have a small kind of outdoor store there, and they sell the backpacking food. You can pick it up there, but you'd probably be looking at spending a whole day, getting up the highway, getting to Kananaskis Village, and then making your way back to the campground. Like there's a lot of traffic, so you probably wouldn't have an issue hitching, but definitely going to take you several hours. I mean, similar like some folks will get off at like Sunshine and like take the bus down to Banff if you want to spend a day in Banff or Lake Louise. But again, that's all going to take time off the trail, so it depends how flexible you want to be and how much you want to explore the areas, or if your focus is on I'm hiking the trail, so when I get to the location, I want my box so I can reload and drop off my garbage and keep going. Right?
Yeah. And Nora, you just had a question. Can you send a box to Sunshine? Not as far as I know. Most people that are resupplying there are going down into the town of Banff, which is going to add a day.
Yeah, they used to, but it was really expensive. It was like $100 or 100, and it was definitely it wasn't cheap, and I don't think that they're doing that this year, at least not that I've heard.
Mm-hmm. Myron, you got a question?
Yeah, quick question here. You mentioned the Facebook group, and you also mentioned a Reddit group. What's the Reddit group that's people are active in?
The Reddit group is not very active.
Okay.
There was. I think that would be great because then it's more accessible to people that don't have Facebook. But if you go onto one of the Ultralight Canada ones, there's a lot of GDT hikers hanging around there. Also, Reddit Ultralight, there's a lot of GDT hikers that are on there. I don't think we have a GDT subreddit, actually.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah. Dave, did you still have a question?
Yeah, I do, Austin. I'd love to get your guys' perspective on two things. One is the trip area between Michelle Lakes on Section E again, Michelle Lakes, Pinto Lakes, Cataract Pass. There, from my knowledge, there's no reservations required for those campsites. And so, generally speaking, are there any issues again towards the end of August? Are you expecting any issues in terms of being able to?
Yeah, it's the only thing that you would. So if you're staying in, so if you look at kind of when you get into this section here, this is the Job Klein public land use zone. So to camp along here, you do need an Alberta Crown Land camping pass. But there's no you don't have to book, you don't have to get specific permits for like each individual night. Some of them, like Michelle Lakes, there's they have food lockers, and also at like Pinto Creek, they've got food lockers as well. But really, you're allowed to random camp anywhere along here if you like. We when we did this section, we stayed at Michelle Lakes, or no, we stayed at Waterfall Creek. That was pretty nice. Pinto Lake North is a pretty big campground. Like they've got food storage. They've got outhouse. Well, they've got green thrones, and a lot of tent pads. Pinto Lake North can be a little bit busy on weekends, just because you'll have a lot of people that'll be hiking in over. I think it's Sunset Pass or Sunshine Pass, and like just coming out this way. Not a lot of people kind of going through here. And then once you get into White Goat, you don't need a permit along here, and you can random camp pretty much anywhere along here as well. I think when we set up some trail cameras last year just to get some trail counts of the number of people that are passing through here, and it was about 200 that passed through this entire section, and that was from beginning of July to kind of late September. So it's like, I mean, when we went through here, like we bumped into a couple people, but not a lot. When you get up to kind of the meadows before Cataract Pass, you'll actually you may bump into a number of folks there because people will be coming in over from the Banff side, so they'll come in over Nigel Pass, then hike up over Cataract Pass this way and stay the night. But like it's huge meadows, so like you could probably have 200 tents up there if you really wanted to. But yeah, you shouldn't have any problems with running out of room or running out of space at any of these sites.
Yeah. And they're not like the same kind of established sites you would see in more developed areas. So it's not like they have gravel or like an actual pad to camp on.
Yeah.
It's just spots that have kind of been made.
Yeah. So like, I mean, like Pinto Lake North is probably the closest to like what you'd see as a traditional kind of campground. But like when we went to Waterfall Creek, like there was a fire pit. There was some a tree. There's a fairly bad bear hang that you could use, but we had our Ursacks. A couple of places where people used to tie up horses, and a couple of feet of clear flat areas. And then like when we camped basically also like around Cataract Creek Ford, and basically it was just like we found a flat spot, we set up tents and we camped.
That sounds great. Thank you. And the public land permit that you talked about, Kelly, is the same one that's required down in B, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And it's like $30 for the whole summer, and it covers off, and it also covers Wilmore as well.
And one last question about the reservation system for you, Kelly. The reservation fee and fire, like I just did some front countries and I got charged reservation fee for each campsite. Is that the normal thing? I mean, I'm trying to put things in a row, and obviously that was front country was open for a specific opening day, but so my next trip is a separate trip. I get that. I'm going to get charged that administration fee. But if I book multiple campsites, why do they charge for?
So I have heard success where people have called into the Parks Canada reservation line and basically said, like I booked these 3 trips and like it's all kind of one itinerary. But due to the nature, I had to do 3 bookings, and like I got the reservation fee charged like 3 times. And I've heard some cases where Parks Canada will go, okay, that's fine, we can consolidate that and we'll refund you the extra reservation. It sounds like it kind of depends which agent you get on the phone, because some won't, some will. So if you get someone who doesn't, then maybe call back another couple days later, you'll get someone else and maybe they'll be able to help you out.
Thank you.
Matt, you got a question?
Yeah, so I'm looking at, or I'm more worried about the bookings on Monday here for Section C, Banff Yoho. I understand that you went through the webinar, so if this is redundant, please feel free to bypass me here. But I was wondering if you could go through just like the permit system, and if I'm recommending, or if I'm going with more of like that average route, and I want to rock wall, kind of like the order of the sites that I should book in. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, I'd say like if you're like on Monday, the probably the 2 sites that you want to get the absolute fastest you possibly can is Flow Lake is probably number 1 if you want to stay there, and Ball Pass number 2. Along the other parts of the trail, there's enough. Like it's like, okay, if I can't stay, if I don't get Egypt Lake, there's Faro Creek is like right down here, like 4 kilometers away. I can, I can push through from either Healy Pass or Healy Creek to Egypt Lake, right? So there's enough campsites along the way that you can kind of figure something out. But this kind of little section here is kind of the real bottleneck. Like there's nothing between Ball Pass and Flow Lake, and that's 20 kilometers, and change. And basically from Ball Pass, you're going to go up about 250 meters from the campsite to the pass. You're going to come down a kilometer down this trail of elevation, and then you're going to be basically up another 800 meters elevation to get to Flow Lake. So, just doing this day as it is a long day. So that again, if those are probably the two sites that you want to try to get absolutely as fast as possible. If you don't get them, again, there are a couple of options, right? I mean, some people I've heard will push all the way through to Numa Creek.
That's
I mean,
what
it definitely adds another, I think, 8 kilometers. And there's some, I think it's about 300 or 400 meters maybe out of Flow Lake over to Numa Pass.
Yeah.
I've even heard people go as far as Wolverine. That to me is crazy talk, but I mean, I have heard that people have done it. Wolverine, there's no permit, so you don't have to worry about that. A few of the other options that I've seen people look at is maybe you didn't get Ball Pass Junction, which is right here. Maybe you're coming in from Egypt Lake or Faro Creek. Is you can hike down to the trailhead, and you can hitchhike because there are a couple of front country. There's I'm trying to remember the name of them, but there's like Marble Canyon and I think one other. So there's basically 2 front country campsites kind of all along this section here. So some people will say, okay, I'm gonna take it to the trail or to the trailhead, and then I'm gonna hitch to one of the front country sites, or maybe I'll even like hitch into Castle Junction or what have you. So and then they'll get back on trail and continue the rock wall. Or they may say, you know what, I'm going to, go to one of those campsites. And since I haven't been able to get permits, I may come in. Numa Creek is finally reopened, so you can actually hike back up this way. Some will even go all the way to Paint Pots Trailhead here and kind of go through Helmet Falls. I mean, this pretty much means you miss the rock wall, and I mean well, you can see my background. Rock wall's a pretty nice hike. So if you can do it, I definitely would recommend it. But like I said, these are going to be the 2 real bottleneck that you want to get as fast as you can.
Yeah, I think I did Ball Pass to Numa, and it's doable. I think start early, you get to Flow for like 3 or 4, maybe 5 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe take a 2-hour break, have dinner, and then you can just push over Numa in the evening. The trail is great right there. Numa has a lot of sites too. But yeah, Ball and then Flow or Numa, I'd say are the top 3. And at that point, I wouldn't even try going for a sequential reservation to save money, because this is kind of a deal breaker just in that spot. And Nora, you asked what was the alternative. So the alternative, we kind of explained it would be hitting the highway, and then you could just you could hitch up here. Stay front country. And then if you wanted to get half of the rock wall, you can also enter in here and go to Tumbling. Oh, sorry, you can't see my cursor. You can, right there, you can go to Tumbling and then go north, and you'll get half of the rock wall trail there. And Tumbling has a lot of sites. It's the easiest campsite to book on the Rockwall Trail. You're also really close to Wolverine, which is just northwest of there, outside of the park, which you don't need a reservation for.
Thanks so much.
I guess the one benefit I'd say is that because usually based on most GDT folks that are starting kind of beginning of July, is you're kind of getting to this section, maybe kind of the later part of July. And usually Flow Lake doesn't even open until July 15th. So for some people, oh, this is kind of still early season for Rockwall. I mean, it is still busy and people are going to book it up super fast, but it's not like you're trying to trying to get Flow Lake August long weekend is, good luck. It's basically, everyone's going to be gunning for that, because not only do you have, some folks that are maybe on a slightly delayed itinerary for the GDT through hike. You've got people that are just, wanting to do rock wall, people that are section hiking section C. And then a lot of people just come up to Flow Lake for a night and then come back out. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to stay.
Okay, so on the reservation system, so would you just say, like, you see Flow Lake, grab it and then just hit reserve? Now, if you reserve that, are you kicked out of there and you have to do your reservations another, like go through the queue again, or can you?
No, you can, I believe, add up to 5. I know that's what it was last summer, that you can basically add 5 trips into your cart. The only downside, and it has gotten better year by year, is that if you go to your cart, you pay it. People sometimes have had issues where they call it like the spinning circle of death, where it processes, and then it gets stuck, and then everything's gone and you're starting from scratch. So it's one of those things like, yes, you can you can get all your stuff into kind of one cart and pay for it. And that's going to be the best bet that you're going to get that itinerary. But there is a small chance that, if that day is your bad luck day, you may lose it all in one foul swoop. So.
And if it's in your cart, it's safe for a certain time. It'll give you a time limit for how long you got dibs on it.
Yeah, and I have heard cases this year where people have had that issue happen where they it locked out, they weren't able to pay for some reason, and then they logged back in and then their cart was there and they were able to pay and they were good. So like I said, Parks Canada site isn't perfect, but it seems to be getting better year on year. And part of the challenge is that for a lot of these sites, you just have tens of thousands of people trying to grab very limited number of spots. So there is volume, but like I said, there seems to be less issues with just the site, hopefully, like entirely, taking a nosedive and everyone losing everything.
Just to expand upon that question, is it when you hit save that it goes in your cart, or when you go reserve to be really anal retentive?
Yeah, so what I would do is we're still in that. And if you'll notice that Jasper does it a little bit differently, the way that Banff Kootenay. So basically, Banff, you got the whole map here where you can start picking sites. Just trying to think. I believe it's so when you click save, that adds it into your itinerary, so like they won't go away. But and then once you'll click, so as you start putting your 3 or 4 chain your things together, because reserve is when it actually adds that itinerary into your cart. So
that's kind of like,
okay,
this is complete, put it in the cart. Save is just like, save this site, I want to keep tacking onto this trip.
Yeah. So once you actually you click this site and it shows you got it, then it'll basically you'll get the next line that says, okay, like January 28th. Then that site on the 27th, it's held for you, right? So you can continue to add things to your itinerary until you're ready, and then you click reserve. But again, some people are just like, okay, I clicked, I got Flow Lake on my day I wanted. I'm just going to click reserve, so it's in my cart, right? And then there's no, because sometimes you'll be fuddling around and you'll pick the wrong entry point or what have you. But that's what I've done sometimes. Is like, I got Flow Lake on July 27th, which is the date I wanted. Just click reserve, it's in my cart. Yeah, I may have to pay the extra reservation fee, but I'll pay for it now, and then I'll call Parks Canada back in a week and see if they can consolidate it and give me some of that money back.
Thank you.
Candace, you're up.
Yeah, you just answered one of my questions, which was, if you're piecing things together, do you pay a separate reservation fee for each, even though you're in one session? I think yes, I would, unless I can somehow win the jackpot and string a bunch together, right?
Yeah, I believe when you click reserve, each item that goes into your cart will have the $12 reservation fee. So if you say you put in, okay, I put my 5 sites together, hit reserve, that 5 sites will count as kind of one reservation, the $12. And then I put another few together, hit reserve, and then I have 2 items in my cart. I believe it'll charge you the $12 reservation each time. But as I said, people have called into Parks Canada and said, well, it's all one trip. It's just, the way that your system works, I had to piece it together. As I said, people have said that they've been able to get those extra reservation fees back.
Yeah. So my other question was, I'm coming from the States, and for our national park backcountry sites, they're all a little bit different in terms of this release number, but approximately like 2/3 are released early through lottery or through like this, what we're going to be doing here on Monday. And then another small amount, like 1/3 to 1/4, are reserved for like a 2-week or a walk-up window. Do these parks do that as well?
I wish the Parks Canada did that. That would make it a little bit nicer, especially for people, walk-ups but right now the way that they do it is that they release the entirety of all the sites on Monday. So yeah, there's no held back, there's no walk-ups, unfortunately.
And then historically, because there aren't, late possibilities for getting a permit, are people good about if their, summer plans, for their one national park trip get canceled? Are they good about canceling their backcountry permits?
I'd say it's mixed, right? Some people, like they'll cancel. Like Park Canada, unfortunately, doesn't make it particularly lucrative for you to cancel your site. Like, they charge you some service fees, and if it's like 1 or 2 sites, you cancel and you pretty much don't get any money back. If it's made like 5 or 6, like all linked together, you'll get money. You'll get enough money back to make it worthwhile. Though people do cancel, and you'll see a combination of, sometimes people on the Facebook will say, hey, I'm about to cancel Egypt Lake. Parks Canada doesn't allow you to kind of like transfer your reservation directly to someone. But a lot of people do say, well, I'm going to go, let's coordinate. Like, I'm going to cancel this at 10:30. So you be in the site at 10:30, and then you should be able to pick it right up right away once I cancel. And then, we mentioned on the other webinar, like there's Schnurp, and I think there's one other site that someone mentioned, and those are pretty good, right? So if you don't get everything you wanted on Monday, I mean, don't kind of lose heart, because you've got these tools like Schnurp where you can say, hey, I want to put in, these are the 4 sites I need and the dates that I want. And then the moment that someone cancels, you'll get a notification, and basically, as long as you're on the ball and log in, you can usually get it. So like every summer, there've been sites I haven't been able to get that I was looking forward to, but using some of those tools, in the end, I've always been able to get the sites I wanted eventually. Sometimes it only may be like a week before the trip, but like there are definitely options if you don't luck out on Monday.
Thanks so much.
All right, Carly, you're up.
Thanks. So my plan was to go SOBO. So starting obviously a little bit later in July than everyone's going SOBO from Jasper down. And from my understanding, it would be, so Jasper would be Thursday, so I don't have to worry about that until then. But on Monday, my question is there anything in particular I need to worry about going that direction that's any different from people going NOBO through all the sections? It seems like I would arrive around Flow Lake maybe in a similar time, maybe not if I'm starting later in July. So do you have any insight into which ones I should pay attention, particularly for SOBO people going?
I think the only thing that I would say is that it probably makes that section between Flow Lake and Ball Pass probably a little, just because if you are going to be a little bit later, you're going to get into the kind of the hotter part of the summer where that is a bit busier. And the climb up to, like, I've come down from Ball Pass, but I've never hiked up to Ball Pass, but I think it's a bit over 1,000 meters elevation, so it is definitely a bit of a climb up to Ball Pass to get into to Ball Pass Junction. So that would probably, I mean, for any trip, Flow Lake and Ball Pass are going to be important, but I'd say that's probably, try to get those as soon as you possibly can on Tuesday, because that's going to be the main bottleneck. I don't know if there's anything else, Austin, that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the same sites are going to be the hard ones to get. I think no matter which way you're going, the reason we stress Flow Lake and Ball Pass so much is that because that's already a pretty long day. And if you don't get one of those, if you don't get both or one of those sites, it's a huge day. Or you'll have to kind of scoot around different directions. So I would say it's the same sites, really. I mean, both of those sections, it's a lot of gain and a lot of elevation loss. Ball Pass to Flow Lake is like 1,000 up and 1,000 down, either way you do it.
Okay, thanks so much.
Nora.
Hi, on access points, we were kind of playing around with the system today, and it seems like it doesn't restrict it. Like even if I have the screen up as you have it, and I select like Red Earth Creek, it still lets me then add, like it still gives me the option for basically any site I wanted in section C. Does it like pinch you later, like when the reservations are actually live?
Yeah, you'll sometimes start, like, for example, if I went in and say, well, I'm just going to pick, I don't know, Spray River East Trailhead, right? And then I pick, Bristol Pass.
Yeah.
Like you'll see it kind of on the list,
Yes.
but then you'll start getting you won't be able to complete this trip in daylight hours or whatever. Like, so Parks Canada, it'll start restricting because it's basically, it says it's too far from that access point to the campsite to do
Right.
what you're proposing. And yeah, so I would make sure that you pick the right entry point so that you don't bump into that problem.
Okay, so I almost have to book site by site, changing the access point to the closest one.
Yeah, well, you can, so the easiest, like usually if you're coming Nobo,
Yeah.
I mean, what I typically did, and when I booked this whole section through myself, is the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Flow Lake Trailhead, look for entry point, and and then it's like, okay, and then one thing I find is to make it a bit faster is know your name, so that instead of just going down this giant scrolling list, if you start typing the actual name, it'll pop up, right? And then, okay, once I've gotten Flow Lake, save, reserve, great. Then I can go down and say, okay, for my next one, I'm going to pick, the Palliser. Palliser Pass access point, which is down here. And then you can say, okay, I'm going to get Bristol or Birdwood, and then maybe Marvel Lake. And then you'll see, okay, well, then I'm in Assiniboine, but they do have an option that says, and you'll see it, out of park, Mount Assiniboine.
Right.
So you can say, okay, I'm going to spend 1 night or 2 nights in Mount Assiniboine, so I can add those out of park to my itinerary. And then maybe I want to do, okay, Howard Douglas, Egypt Lake, and Ball Pass, or what have you. And then, okay, reserve, grab that. And then maybe I'll go up to say, okay, I want to do Iceline in Yoho. So I'll pick the kind of Yoho Lake trailhead here. And then I'll, go to Little Yoho or whatever those are, as I kind of put those together.
Right. Okay, thanks. It looks like I'll have to just kind of figure it out as I.
Yeah. And this is just logging in like this, even though you won't be able to pick anything, you'll be able to start seeing, those are probably the main trailhead or sort of entry points that you're going to be mainly concerned about. Palliser Pass, because that's the southernmost, linking everything together, heading up north. There's the Flow Lake Trailhead that kind of enters you into Rockwall. And then for Yoho, sorry, it's the Takaka Falls Trailhead that kind of gets you into Iceline and up here. And then if you're coming southbound, I guess there's got the glacier. You should be able to, would pick, Takaka Falls, because then you want to grab Little Yoho from there coming south. And then you want to pick Ottertail River Trailhead. And then that'll allow you to kind of enter the Rockwall from the other direction.
You only need to select a new access point if you're going a super big distance. So when you're starting off on section C, you'll do the Palliser Pass if you're going northbound, and you'll be able to select like a few sequential nights under one block, and then you can reserve and add it to your cart and then move on. Another good way to practice is if people that aren't super familiar, try using Waterton, because Waterton's open. You can kind of get an idea on what it actually looks like to string a few sites together without booking them.
Thank you. Yeah, I think stringing a few sites would have been good, but I'm going to try to do your strategy of flow first, ball pass, then Marvel. So then I think the itinerary is kind of out the window. I'm just going to go site by site to try to get them in the cart.
Gotcha.
And then picking the individual access points. I was trying to figure out if there's like 1 or 2 main access points that would let me access most of them, so I don't have to keep switching each time.
Gotcha. Yeah, Palliser will give you a string, not the super hard to get ones. And then Flow, Lake, Trailhead will give you everything on the Rockwall Trail.
Do you know if it gives me ball pass too?
It should. So Parks Canada said
Good,
they
right?
have changed it where you can now go ball pass to Flow Lake in one day. I think the one hangup that would maybe happen is that, say you picked Flow Lake and you pick night 1 on ball pass, night 2 on Flow Lake. They've told us that will work, but it may not. And in that case, you would have to do the same access point, like you'd pick Flow Lake, ball pass, reserve, Flow Lake, reserve. But theoretically, you should be able to do that one branch between the 2 campsites with only 1 access point.
Yeah. The only, I guess, the only caveat I would say is because Flow Lake goes so fast, I would probably try to get it into your cart as quickly as you can, because things like Birstall and Birdwood are, Marvel Lake is a little bit busier, and like Egypt Lake is busier, but a lot of those other ones, like you probably won't have much problem getting some of those sites. And again, there's alternates that are close enough nearby that maybe you have to hike off trail for 4K to a different campsite if need be. But by the time you get to, I've linked everything back along the trail up to Flow Lake. Even though the system may allow you to do it, it's going to be hard for you to, especially when you say, oh, okay, well, Flow Lake's not available on the 27th. It is on the 28th. Oh, do I have to go back and like rejig the rest of my itinerary to try to get a date that's still available? But if you get Flow Lake first, then you can backtrack and say, okay, well, if I got Flow Lake for the 28th, okay, 5 days back, I've got to pick, Birstall and then all the other sites when I put that next itinerary together.
Okay, thanks so much, you guys. This is great information.
Adam.
Hey, so because we're kind of talking about it, I don't know if you guys have ever heard about this. Some of my friends have done this. I've done it before for certain mountaineering objectives. Sometimes we can call parks and just say, look, I'll be kind of in this area near this vicinity, and I just want to bivvy kind of on the side of this mountain, and they'll provide a pass. So for things like Sir Donald in Glacier National Park, some stuff in Garibaldi, even Hungabee, and like that's be south of Lake O'Hara. So areas like this, they've provided permits like this, which is kind of, I don't know if something like that would be allowed for, let's say, south of Flow Lake. This is not something I'm, interested in myself, but I'm just curious for like, maybe future for GDT hikers. But do you think they would allow you to like bivvy somewhere south of Flow Lake, something like this, or would they kind of become suspicious? I'm sure if something like this were to exist, maybe you guys would already know about it.
So it is something that we've had some discussions with Parks Canada, because I mean, Parks Canada is aware of kind of the bottleneck and the challenge here. So there's a few options where we're in discussions with them about it. It definitely won't be something for this summer, but maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, there may be something that we can kind of add in that area to make it easier to get through that bottleneck. I know that Banff does do kind of like the mountaineering bivvy permits, but from my understanding, like they're pretty strict on like, well, what is your mountaineering? Like you're actually going to climb a mountain, right? And they're doing it because in order for you to do it safely, you need to have the full day to climb that particular mountain, and so they're going to let you camp relatively close to the bottom of that mountain, and it's going to be like, you know, a small party and low impact. If you start getting into people's like, well, can I get a special bivvy permit for, you know, next to Flow Lake? Probably not, just because that's an extremely busy, you know, area of the park, and they're trying to minimize impact. And then in Banff, like there are whole sections of the parks where they do allow random camping, and those are like the sections like we've talked about, like, you know, Amaskiwi and Howe's floodplain, and there are other, you know, quite a few, you know, areas in both Jasper, Banff, and you know, Kootenay, where you can get those kind of random permits, but they're mostly in places where either they're quite remote, so there's not a lot of people anyway, or you know, they kind of the impact is not considered significant, so they'll allow people to random camp.
And just if you're curious, I've heard south of Flow Lake, so not east towards the highway, but actually further south. I heard it's really, really bad. Some people I know went back there, and it did not sound like a fun time.
Yeah, there's a YouTube video. I remember it was someone and Dan Durston that kind of did the next pass over from Rockwall, and some of it looked really nice, and some of it not so much.
These are the areas that they typically allow for that kind of bivvy. So I'd be yeah, and you're right. Like I think when you kind of specific about what objectives you're doing and exactly where you are, they do have certain restrictions. They want you to be in certain spots or out of sight or above usually trees, etc. So they kind of do want a few more details when you're making these kind of reservations.
Candace.
Okay, are you allowed to hold 2 permits for one date? So I'm just envisioning, like, I build it, I get it in a decent time, I get Ball Pass and Numa, because I don't think I'm going to even try for Flow Lake. And then I'm going on through, and then I refresh and I realize, like, holy crap, Flow Lake is available. And now I don't want to like discard my entire itinerary, but can I just go grab that even though I already have Numa Creek and then go fix things later? I know that was a jumbled mess, but I'm basically wondering if it'll block you from booking.
Unfortunately, parks, like the system won't allow you to have 2 permits for the same night. So I encountered this last summer when I got a permit at Faro Creek because I was doing Section C in and around Egypt Lake. Egypt Lake was, I think it was either full or they hadn't released some of the permits because they're doing some construction around Egypt Lake. And then Egypt Lake came available. I had it on Schnurp, and then it's available. And I booked it, and I tried to book it, and it's like, well, you already have a night at Faro Creek. So I actually signed in under my wife's profile and got the Egypt Lake night. So I had those permits, and I tried to call back to Parks Canada. I said, okay, well, can you combine them, or can you like slot out the, you know, Faro Creek night for, you know, the Egypt Lake night I have? Unfortunately, they weren't able to. It's basically we could cancel your whole itinerary and rebuild it, or you just kind of leave it the way it is. And I'm like, well, I'll just leave it the way it is because I don't want to risk losing all the other permits that I had. But yeah, that is a restriction that they do have for you know, multiple permits for the same night. And the BC system does the same thing for, like, you know, Magog and Og Lake.
Okay, thanks for that. That brings up another question. When you go through the payment process and the reservation process, do you choose an alternate permit holder? So like, say there's 2 of you, and you both are getting permits under different names or piecing them together or whatever. Is there an alternate permit holder?
I don't know if there's an alternate permit holder. They will just trying to remember if because I think they ask for like the names of your party members, but there is still the one person that's kind of the primary, like the person who booked it, that is kind of the primary account holder. So you can swap in the people that are in your party in and or out, like if that kind of changes, but the permit holder itself still needs to be the like the person that's on the trail with the permit.
Yeah.
Actually, Kelly, I just checked in Waterton, and I was able to book the same campground on the same night in different reservations.
Okay, well, maybe that's changed because I know it's something that I wasn't able to do last year. So.
And then one more question, as far as permit pickup, do you pick those up in person or are these online printing out?
Yeah, you just have to print them out. So I think Candace, you said you were from the US?
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's not like because I know I've been to Glacier in Montana, and you actually
Yeah.
have to physically go and they make you watch a little video and
you have to show your
And-
ID and
yeah, no, you just print. You'll get it emailed, you print it out, and that's your permit. You don't have to stop at any visitor center to pick it up.
because I can just envision if for whatever reason my hiking partner got one of the duplicate sites under their name and then I would cancel my site for that same night, but then they couldn't go, I could still print out her permit for that one site for that one night.
Yeah.
But I mean, potentially.
Mhm. Adam.
I just wanted a quick comment on what was just said. So in the past, I have not been able to book the same day reservation under my name. And interestingly, the way I found out about this is I had like just a front country reservation at Lake Louise, and was trying to book the shuttle ticket that I think they introduced this last year, the same day, and you can't do that. So because it's thinking that you're booking the same, you're going to be in two places at once, even though it's a shuttle ride. Long story short is what I did is I said I'm booking under a different person. And then under my first name, I just put my first and middle name. And that was enough to sort of, for the system to think it's booked under a different person. I was still able to get my shuttle ticket. And I imagine, it's pretty rare. Like in the popular sites, there's sometimes park people will check for passes. But let's say somebody were to check your pass, if they saw your first and middle name, they wouldn't bat an eye on that. So if you had to in a pinch, you could get around it that way. Yeah, that works sometimes. Otherwise, I just had a quick question. This is a quick one. It's about Miette Lake in section F and Chown Creek in section G. I believe these are under the Jasper reservations. And I believe that Miette Lake is a random camping permit. So this would just be, you call the office and they would book something for you. And Chown Creek, I think, is orange. So they want you to call. And I believe for both of these sites, like very few people go there. I don't think you'd have any issues making a reservation.
Yeah, F and G, the ones that are in the park are they're not traveled very often. It's quite common for parks to also not open these reservations up until quite late in the year, just because of snowpack level and water level. I think they're beginning to know that these are GDT hikers and they're going no matter what. But I've never heard of them even being close to being full. Once you're north of Jasper, you're pretty much home free.
Okay, so they're just quick phone reservations, those two.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think the one that particularly sometimes is Wolverine North, just because it does flood. So sometimes like they're just saying like, yeah, we won't issue a permit because we don't know if it's even going to be open until September time.
Question for you, Kelly. Where it says to phone for backcountry permit or backcountry random camp, are you phoning the parks office or are you phoning the reservation line? Reservation.
I would, yeah. So I think for most, like for anything that's in Banff, Yoho, or Kootenay, I would call the Lake Louise trail office. You usually can get to them very quickly. You can also call the Banff Trails office. Most time it's like you won't be able to get through, but if you leave a message, then they'll get back to you. For anything that's in Jasper, I would call the Jasper Trails office. Just because they know the park a lot better. You can call the general reservation line, but that's like a call center. I'm not even sure where it is, and they probably aren't going to really know about what the GDT is, or and they may not. I don't even know if they can issue some of the random permits in some of the just the general line. So I would call the trail office for the respective park.
Thank you.
So I have some questions about section G and F. But like, does anybody else have any questions about reservations maybe first?
I see Nick. I see Nick's hand up.
Hey, yeah, just regarding that, I called the Lake Louise Visitor Center yesterday. And I posted this on the Facebook page yesterday, and just in case anyone didn't see this, but when I called them to look to get my random camping permit, they basically were kind of like, well, whoa, why are you doing this so early? Their recommendation is to call back a lot closer on to the date of stay. So if you try calling them up now, you may get one that might be okay booking that, but for the most part, it sounds like they're more comfortable doing that pretty later on, late June, early July.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, I've done it like early in the season whenever I've had to get a rent. Like I can see the may not as being here this week because everything's super busy. But I'd still probably try to get them as soon as you can if you can get them locked in. I can understand that there's probably a bit of like, well, we don't know what the snowpack's going to be like. Is it going to be melted? Is it going to be flooded? But yeah, like in the past when I've talked to them and said, yeah, well, I'm hiking this section of the GDT, and it's like, oh, okay. We'll figure it out, and usually they've been pretty helpful. So maybe it was just that person that you talked to.
Yeah, I'll try calling back. Maybe the different office, or just see if I get a different guy and see if they're willing to do that.
I mean, they definitely won't issue them like for like Banff, Yoho, or Kootenay prior to Monday when everything opens up. But usually after that, I haven't had problems getting those permits.
Sure.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
Yeah. No, just someone had asked. I had some questions about section G, but Candace, if you want to go.
Just briefly, I understand the Berg Lake Trail is closed. Is that a common like side trip, day trip, like just to the part where it's closed, or is that something people typically would only do if they were resupplying at Mount Robson?
Like so when the trail was open, like before it was flooded a couple of years ago, some people would use that as resupply. Some people would actually use it as the terminus, because that used to be the original terminus of the Great Divide Trail. Is you'd get out to Robson and then you were done, because it's a lot easier to get a ride on Highway 16 than it is way up the Walker Creek Forestry Road. And then some people would use it as a day trip because they would like to go see Berg Lake, right? So they would come in over the pass, stay a night at Berg Lake, and then head back up the trail. Unfortunately, right now, because of the reconstruction work they're doing to rebuild the trail, they have basically said that the trail is closed. So, there was an ask, I think, on the webinar. It's like, well, can you just, I can understand that it's closed coming up from the trailhead, but can you just come in over the pass and go see the lake? And the answer is they've said the trail itself is closed because, like I said, there is construction that's being done and trail work that's being done to rebuild the trail.
It would also add another day to section F and G, which is already a long push. Even if it wasn't closed, usually like that would turn that section into quite a long stretch.
Yeah, gotcha.
Were there some questions for section G?
Yeah, so I had a few. So section F and G are very long, and because resupply are more difficult, I'm planning on doing this fairly quickly. I wouldn't say ultra quickly, but fairly quickly. My concern is about the river crossings. I hear that this section has bigger river crossings and that some of them might be a lot more difficult later in the day when the ice melts, rivers get higher. Is there anything in particular in terms of river crossings that I might struggle with here? Just to give you guys an idea of what my itinerary sort of looks like, it would be like Miette Lake, Slide, Chown Creek, Jack Pine Village Camp, Shale Pass, something like this. So there are I think there's multiple multiple river crossings in a day, and then they're not necessarily timed. I didn't really look at the timing, but when I made this itinerary.
Yeah, I think, how tall are you? Just out of curiosity.
5'8", 5'9", maybe.
Okay. A couple things. The snowpack is lower this year, so there's the chance that the rivers may be lower by that point. A lot can happen. Rain can make a big difference with that. But regarding rivers, it's not uncommon for a river to be a foot higher between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. To give you an idea for F and G, I'll try to find a picture
I've got the maps here, so if you wanted to show on a map, but I've got them out.
Oh, I was just going to show you on kind of what some of the rivers look like, because I think
oh yeah, that's helpful.
That's one of the crossings. You can see there used to be a bridge here. It's super silty, so it's hard to tell exactly how deep it is, but this one, I mean, you can see it's moving. It's not full white water, but it's still moving pretty quick. I'm 6 feet tall. For me, this was mid-thigh. And I think that's kind of pretty average for what that section would look like. And this is, I always forget, this is the one, there's a campground right next to this crossing. I'll have to look it up. I'm pretty sure that's Carcajou. And then I'll try to find another one just to give you an idea on what some of the crossings actually look like. Here's another one. This is Chown, I believe. I could look up the locations in more specifically, but a lot of the crossings are going to be kind of like that mid-shin to mid-thigh depth. I mean, if you can hit them earlier in the morning, that's beneficial. I know sometimes that it doesn't work. The good thing is that, F and G, there's not a lot of reservations that you need to make that hold you down. So you can kind of, if you're feeling it, you can keep pushing. I take it, are you going to do it in one push without a resupply from at Blueberry?
Yeah, I'm going to try.
Yeah, that's what I did. That wasn't an option. I think we did it in 9 or 10 days. Definitely could have gone longer. Some days we didn't have the best weather, so the morale wasn't as high as it could have been. But I think if you spend a lot of time just scoping out where to cross, if you can really try to cross them earlier in the day, that's great. Sometimes, I mean, there's always the option where if you get to it and you're like, this is way too deep for me to cross, you can pitch a tent right on the shore and cross it first thing in the morning. I know it kind of screws up your itinerary. We also hosted a webinar on river crossings last year with somebody that was like a hydrologist and studied, the flow of water. They did a great job. I'll post that here in the chat real quick. And we kind of talk more specifically about some of the rivers, strategies, and how to find better places to cross just by looking at the geology of what's happening in the river right now.
Yeah, if you post that, I'll have a look. And then, so nothing in particular, there wasn't one or two river crossings that were kind of notorious for, hey, I should try to get here in the morning or be somewhere here before in the morning. If I was to be at some of these rivers kind of in the evening, I might be okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 or 4 pretty stout ones, I'd say. I'm just posting. There's the YouTube. 3 or 4, Chown, Carcajou, Smoky. I guess the Chown, Carcajou, and Smoky rivers are probably the 3 biggest. if you can hit those all earlier, the better. Not everybody does. So it's not always a make or break, but it's just kind of stacking the cards in your favor if you can hit them earlier.
Sounds good. And then I have just a few questions. You kind of mentioned that you haven't done these in the webinar, but it's there's like 3 alternates on section G that they kind of look like they take either a high route, like on a ridge line.
Mhm.
There's a long one. It's called the Perseverance high
Yep.
route. That kind of looks interesting, and it looks like it avoids maybe that Jack Pine Valley that's like full of willow and whatever else. I don't know. And then there's the Talbot alternate, which is a little bit shorter. It's higher up, and then just close to that is Surprise Pass high route. I don't know if you could comment on any of these, or when you were there, like if the route sort of looked doable, or what it looked like.
Yes, regarding Perseverance, everybody I've talked to that has done it said it definitely adds a day to your itinerary in FNG. So for that reason, a lot of people kind of stay away from it because it's already a big push if you're not doing a resupply. I heard it is nice though. I did want to comment. So the Jack Pine, we've done a lot of trail work in there. So most of the horror stories you hear about the Jack Pine are no longer existent.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So the trail maintenance started in 2021 in August, and then we were back there 2022 and this past summer. So we've had a few years of trail building through there. So now most of like the really bad spots aren't really a problem. And then finally, the one you was it Surprise Pass that you asked about, right near the end.
So it's near the top. It's kind of near Kakwa. Like it's Talbot alternate. And then Surprise Pass high route. So they're kind of both next to each other.
Yeah, I heard Surprise Pass is really nice. I haven't done it, but I've heard if the weather's great, people love it.
On one other route here, so again, I think it'll sort of depend on timing, how I feel. I mean, it's already at the very end, and like you don't really have a lot of room for error in that section. So I might just kind of stick to the main route, depending on how I feel like. There is an alternate that people kind of talk about right out of Jasper, but from what I've read, also, people have said it's not a trail at all.
Yeah.
And it's like, to be honest, it's because I have to do quite a bit of kilometers. I probably just going to omit it because otherwise I wouldn't be able to walk that far. But it's that little section you're looking at right now. Yeah.
Yeah, the Tote Road or whatever is along
in Marjorie Lake.
Yeah.
Any comments?
I heard it's rough. A huge amount of people hitch to the trailhead. I think it's 28K because most people are highway walking there. So a ton of people hitch just to what trailhead is that? The Mayette River trailhead. I understand if you want to do a true through. I'd say a majority of people though are hopping in a car or even a cab just to get out there because I heard the trail's in really rough shape. And so
I might just walk on a road, but I'll probably just walk.
Yeah, because like I've heard that like up to Minnow Lake, this part's okay, but then from Minnow Lake to get back to the Tote Road is like this is basically bushwhacking in here, and then like the Tote Road is not that great either. So
is that something that you guys are thinking about making part of the GDT? Because people prefer to walk on a trail versus a road. Is that something that you guys have thought about, or?
Yeah, this is one because it's in Jasper. So a lot of our work with Jasper is with the Friends of Jasper. So those it's definitely something that we've raised, but we basically have to work through some of the partners within the national parks. We have a lot more flexibility in doing work outside of the national parks. The national parks are a little bit more process to go through if we want to do work on the trails in them.
They let you guys work on just south of Skyline, so I don't know. But yeah, like I understand what you're saying totally.
Yeah, Dave asked a question about exiting at Moose River, which is between Jasper and Berg Lake or Mount Robson. I don't know anybody that's used that. Kelly, do you know anybody that's used that exit point before?
Not as an exit. I have heard some people going into the trail, like up here, like Resplendent, and
Yep.
then coming in. I seem to recall watching a YouTube video of someone doing it a couple years back, rather than kind of up through Miet.
I've heard that.
I do recall that there were some pretty good fords though in
Mhm.
this section. So
I was wondering if that was a potential resupply through that guide outfitter and Trail Angel, if he does that through that valley, or if it's the next
yeah,
one.
so that one that you're talking about is through Blueberry, which is up
Blueberry.
here.
Okay.
So basically there's what he'll do is that we've managed to get some food storage lockers down here just at the trailhead on the forestry road. So he's able to bring them up and basically put them in the food storage locker. He does also offer the service of hiking it up to Blueberry Lake. And the only thing is that he actually has to meet you to do the handoff at Blueberry Lake. One of the reasons that we were able to get these the food lockers in place is they were having a lot of problems where people were, either they'd set their cache here, leave it, or they'd hike it all the way in and kind of pre-position a cache up at the lake, and then they'd go all the way back down to Waterton, start their trail, and then they'd get off trail or abandon their through hike, and there were just all these caches of food that were just being left up at the lake. And it was causing some challenges because there's a lot of horse equestrian users in and around here. And one summer they actually BC Parks chartered a helicopter, and they basically flew a whole helicopter full of garbage out of Blueberry Lake. So they've allowed us to set up these food lockers down here. So if you don't know exactly what your timing is or when you're going to be there, then you can just pick it up whenever you want. He'll give you the kind of the code to get in. If you actually want to avoid this climb, you can definitely coordinate via InReach or what have you, so that they're there, and then you've kind of got to meet your appointment to get your food if you want them to bring it up to the lake.
Nick, do you have a question?
Kelly,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just trying to get a better answer for the moose drainage, if that was a feasible option, if anybody knows if that's a workable loop.
Like I said, I've seen some videos of people that have done it. There's probably some good fords on that section. For like resupply, it's one of those like you're only really have gone this far before then you have to come back out to so I don't know if it's really would be viable for resupply per se, because you're just going to add a couple extra days when you've only been hiking maybe 2 or 3 days to resupply. So it's probably not worth it there. But yeah, like I said, I have seen some videos of people hiking Moose River.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. I was thinking about trying to skip Skyline because I've done it already, and maybe add 3 or 4 days on F, and just get a head start on F before next year. So that's kind of my idea. But
so like come in and then come out on Moose.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I would do a sort like I can maybe see if I can find the video, but I have seen a video of someone coming up Moose.
Okay. Well, if you have anything, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Alex, did you still have a question? I see your hands up. Nope. All right, Nick.
Sorry.
Oh, Alex, yeah, okay.
Yeah, sorry. It was too quick to remove that. So my question is 2 questions. Like, how far is the Blueberry Trail from this food storage locker? That's the first one. So I do not know that.
Yeah, from the lake, it's about. It's probably about 6K.
Okay, yeah, got you.
It is fairly steep from what I've heard, and it's not necessarily in the greatest condition, but it's basically so it's basically about a 12K loop.
Okay.
But yeah, the gain is quite substantial. I think it's what is it?
Yeah, it's what from 1100 to Well, 1800, so it's about, yeah, 700 meters elevation or so.
Yeah. And the other one is, I do not know if you talk about this in the webinar already, is Mount Robson, the section F to G. There was this flood a couple of years ago, and I do not know how it works and how accessible you can walk through, or you have to go on a road, or how I have to plan this.
Yeah, so like you're referring to like Mount Robson through Berg Lake.
Yeah.
Because yeah, right now it's open. I mean, last summer it was open, I think, to Kinney Lake. And so I don't know if they're like, they said that the whole trail should be open by 2025, so not this summer, but next summer. I don't know if they're going to be opening any additional components of the trail for this summer, but basically this section right now from Kinney Lake to Robson Pass is closed, so you can't. In the winter time, it actually, so right now it actually is open. In the winter they let you go up, but in the summer for hiking season, it'll be closed through Berg Lake. I don't know if they'll open it up to Whitehorn, but for right now, basically expect anything past Kinney Lake will be closed.
But you can, on the trail himself, you can walking through, or you have to
No,
take
this section of trail here is closed, so you aren't able to. They're rebuilding and reconstructing the trail.
Okay.
Nick?
Hey, yeah, for the Blueberry Lake resupply, I might be able to have my in-laws drop off a package, assuming that Forest Service Road to access the trailhead is okay. Do you have any knowledge if that's decent for people to go up with a, high clearance?
Yeah, so for any of the resupply services there, it would have to be done through I think it's Jasper Backcountry Adventures. They're kind of the partner that we're working with to maintain and operate those lockers.
Meaning that I couldn't have someone drive and deliver a package to me?
No, because there's locks on it, so
they could meet you.
If you could meet me, that'd be fine.
They could meet you. Yeah, you just wouldn't be able to store something in the lockers.
Gotcha. And then also on that same note, Walker Forest Service Road, I think I saw your note that it's a little bit better than last year. Would you say that a Jeep Wrangler would be able to get through just fine up to the Bastille trailhead?
Yes. I would think so, because we potentially there'll be trail building going on in there, and we're driving in there with trucks. A Wrangler is way better off-road than a pickup truck. There's lots of bush bashing, so you'll definitely get some BC pinstripes on your vehicle if it's anything like it was. But yeah, any kind of SUV, kind of higher clearance should be fine at this point.
Okay, awesome.
Adam?
Is Kakwa Lake Trailhead and Bastille Lake Trailhead the same thing?
Let me double check. At that point, I was such a animal, I forgot about what trailhead was called what. Let me double check.
It's definitely not Cannon.
Yeah, I believe so. Bastille is the trailhead that takes you to Kakwa.
Oh, the Walker, so that's service road. What's the water like on it? Like it looks like it follows a river, most of it, but not all of it.
On the Walker Creek?
Yeah, like if I was planning on hiking back to the highway, try to do that whole 100K in 2 days-ish.
Yeah.
From Kakwa Lake out. Like, is it sort of easy to find water the entire time, or like, because I would like to just walk as far as I can.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like,
yeah.
What's the water like there?
For a lot of it, where it looks like you're next to the water, it's in quite a steep kind of valley, and the road is just like perched on the edge of the the edge, and it's too steep to get down to the water.
Gotcha.
There is, let me see, I have a note. There is a nice campsite. Oh, you know what? I think it's on the Far Out app. About halfway, there's a spot to camp and there's some water there. You will cross water a few times, but it's not like you're going to be walking along a creek for very much of it.
It's one of those situations where I'd like to walk as far as possible, but if I find some kind of creek, you know, I might just debate whether to stay there because I don't know if there's something ahead of me. I can always look at a map. I do have the app as well. I've downloaded the map as well. So I'll consider that. I just didn't want to like hopefully walk by a creek and then I guess I could always fill up on water as well too. Yeah, that's okay. That works. Thanks.
Yeah. I think actually right in the middle, let me double check. I have a note from when I met with somebody about this. I think right in the very middle, there is at kilometer 37 on the FSR, there's a great campsite with water. So that's pretty much halfway.
Yeah, that works. I don't know if anybody else had any questions. I was gonna just ask you guys maybe like kind of to summarize maybe some of the key challenges on each section, like just a very brief summary, like, you know, either a hard day or a hard, like very brief, or just a quick description of each section. But I don't know, maybe that's like a different webinar, or I don't know what time is like here. So
Yeah, I think like if you want like a description, I think like the webinar from earlier in the month, I think Austin did a really good job kind of describing each section. If I were to say kind of like maybe the challenging points, I guess, I mean, section A, you know, La Coulette is probably the, you know, the hard day that you're going to encounter. I think some people said it's basically like the hardest day on the whole trail. And that's La Coulette is, yeah, right around here. Oh, there's La Coulette right there. On section B, I know there's like a lot of up and down, but I think the hardest I've heard is Tornado Saddle and kind of Tornado Pass. It's kind of a steep climb up to the Tornado Pass.
there's a campground right before that, I believe, Tornado Pass. It's like Dutch Creek there, the Dutch Creek campground.
Yeah, there's Dutch Creek campground. And again, like these are like, you're still in like, while they're like established or semi-rustic campgrounds, these areas are either in wildland provincial parks or public land use zones. So you can random camp along here. It's nice. Some of these will have you know, a little bit more facilities. And then I guess once I think that's, you know, you've got the road walk, so that's where you know, along Elk Valley, where you can make up some miles pretty quick. If I think of section C, I mean, it's pretty steep coming out of North Kananaskis Pass down into the Palliser. Little bit of trail finding in kind of the upper Palliser up here. It's not as frequently maintained by Parks Canada, but nothing I'd say particularly challenging. Otherwise, I don't think there's really much on section C that I would like. It's all mostly well maintained, pretty popular trail the entire way.
How is that section? So right after, because I've done the rock wall. The one little part I haven't done though is this bit that goes from
good surpass through like,
yeah, that's the one. How's that?
I think it's probably not as well traversed, but I think it's I know MacArthur, like the MacArthur Creek campground, they had a big blowdown a couple of years back. I think a lot of that's been cleared up.
Yeah, it's all good.
So yeah, I think you're probably fine through here.
And
You
then
can fly after MacArthur. It's basically an old road between Helmet Falls and MacArthur. There's some spots where you're going through some abbey paths where there was some debris that was in there. It was short to climb over. I think some of it may have actually been cleaned up. I don't know for sure. But it's actually it's not super exciting through there. So it's a pretty good spot to, you know, turn up the pace and just move pretty quick.
If we look at like section D, I mean, a lot of folks are going to do the Amiskewee alternate. I've heard like it's just horrific going up the valley kind of through here because it's Parks Canada no longer maintains the routing here. There originally were some like challenges around kind of like route finding, getting through the kind of the little gap here. But my understanding is that it's been well flagged, and enough people are going through here now that it's going to still be fairly steep, and it's not nice switchbacks, but you should be able to find your kind of route through here fairly easily. And then of course, like this summer, because of the as you get into kind of like the Collie Creek area, we are still, at least at the moment, recommending people do take the kind of the road down and back up again, kind of the original trail, just until we kind of figure out what's happening with kind of the bridge crossing up here. We're hoping that we're going to be able to get something in really early in the season, but we're still waiting on BC to give the thumbs up on that work.
Kelly, just a quick question on that. Assuming that you could forward that placement to late summer, I think I heard from Austin last year in a webinar that it was probably doable just upstream from where the old bridge was. Is there not another crossing that is somewhat sketchy previous to that on the Collie Creek that has a log bridge?
Yeah, there is one. I'm trying to remember. I think it's here. There's a bridge as of last fall when people last went through there. We know that it's somewhat, it is somewhat precarious. So will it survive the spring melt? We don't know as of yet. Right now there is a bridge over here, over this the section here, but right now it's the challenge of once you get all the way up to Blueberry, right? There's no way to easily cross back onto the kind of the west bank. Later in the season, like late August, September, it's probably fordable, but earlier than that, it probably isn't.
All right, I was wondering about the canyon there that you flagged earlier on there on Collie Creek.
Yeah, like I said, like historically, yes, this was one of the more hazardous kind of crossings, especially later in the day with kind of glacier melt. But yeah, there is a bridge that has been put there, but like I said, I know there's a plan to go in and try to like repair it, and but that's assume it survives the spring.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see.
How are the
then there's
floodplains here?
Oh, sorry.
How are the floodplains?
Basically what I say is expect to get your feet wet. Like it's you're generally going to be kind of going along the edge and then
crossing
all the kind of little tributaries, and because it's fairly braided. So you probably are going to get, that's why some people say, like, if you're going to change your shoes in Saskatchewan crossing, because you've hiked a lot of miles already, and you spent probably 2 days or a day and a half with them totally soaked, and it's probably a good time to get some new shoes.
Yeah, your feet are going to be soaked the whole day because you're going through the water 100 times maybe.
I saw a video of somebody doing this. I don't know if it was just late in the season, but the whole floodplain seemed pretty dry, so it was pretty quick for them. But I've also heard that this section, and I'm not sure what they're referring to in this section, is like considered the hardest section. I feel like maybe that was a comment that was written a long time ago before some of the work was done, or before the alternate potentially, but
It was a lot of that was before the alternate. I mean, the official route is still pretty brutal. It's an old trail that's been overgrown, willows and alders like 10 feet tall. So I think that kind of tarnished it. But now that we have the alternate, that's almost the official route, not quite, but I think we're going to be moving that way. And then, but physically, it's definitely not the hardest. You can move quick through there. Like, to give you an idea, like on my through hike, I think the average day was 27K. We could definitely do 35 on section through the floodplain area. Like you can scoot through section D pretty quick. It's definitely doable in 3 days without being a superhuman.
That's really good to know.
Once we get into E, I mean, there's definitely the bash up Owens Creek is not the most fun. This kind of part through here is not too bad. Just up through here, you're pretty much on the side of the creek, and bashing up rocks and all that stuff. So it's pretty steep through here. But once you get up to Owens Pass, it's it's up and down, but it's not really so much trail. But you know where you need to go. Like you get up here to Owens Pass, you can see the next pass here, and it's like, okay, I need to get from here to there. So it's just a bit more like micro navigation. Same with kind of through here around like Waterfall Creek. Once you get to Waterfall Creek, there's a pretty well defined trail up to Pinto Pass, and then down Pinto Pass all the way into Pinto Lake.
Ellie, is it that section you just described, mostly in the alpine or subalpine?
Yeah, a lot of like once you get probably about here in Owens Creek, you're pretty much above tree line for
And
the
then-
most part. There's a bit of trees around the low part of the valley in Waterfall Creek, and then once you get into, I think it's Pinto Creek 1 or 2, one of the little horse camps here, then you're kind of back into trees.
So just looking at your contours there, it looks pretty self-explanatory for navigating, but whiteout fog conditions, anything like that later in the season, is that
Yeah, I mean, like there's usually a lot, like people have like put cairns kind of along the way. So usually if you do get kind of, how do I get over there? It's like, oh, there's a cairn that someone's left, or there's or flagging. So once you get into White Goat, I mean, I've heard a lot of people like say this is just horrific blowdowns here. I mean, yeah, there are blowdowns. I
It's
didn't
not bad.
find it as bad as I thought, and maybe I just psyched myself up thinking it was going to be worse. But most of the blowdowns are either on the ground, so you can step over them, or people have already made little reroutes around kind of the bigger trees that are down. So actually, I found it not too bad going up Cataract Creek. And then the meadows before Cataract Pass are really nice. So far I haven't been really much north of Nigel Pass, so maybe Austin, if you had any thoughts kind of coming past that.
Past Nigel Pass, kind of going towards Brazo.
Yeah.
You're home free once you're in Brazo.
Yeah.
There's actually, it's a little confusing just between Nigel and Brazo. There's just a few kilometers there before you actually get onto the loop, where you kind of it's very short, but it's kind of funny because you go from cruising along pretty good to kind of like there's these giant boulders you kind of got to pick. Sometimes you'll go around, be like, oh, can't get around this way, and then you turn around, but it's less than a kilometer. But and then you're on Great Trail all the way through Brazo. And the grade of the trail is much less than the southern sections of E.
Is this still through like subalpine, so above trees here?
Once you get to Brazo, you are much lower. So when you're kind of a lot of the trail, you're going to be kind of down by rivers. There's some trees. It's not particularly dense, but then kind of the higher spots on the Brazo loop, you will be in the alpine. If I was to guess, I'd say maybe you're at 1700 meters on Brazo. Let me look real quick.
Yeah, I think when you get to like Jonas Pass and Jonas Shoulder, there's definitely views open up from what I've seen.
So you're at about 2,000 meters on Brazo, and then when you get to the higher spots, you're at like 22, 23, 2400.
I've heard Cataract Pass is one of the most beautiful spots on the GDT, but I don't know, maybe that's just his opinion.
It's pretty spectacular up there.
Yeah,
It's
awesome.
I won't lie.
And
yeah,
then
and then
this
I
would
think
go into Skyline or the 6 pass alternate.
Yeah, and this is we've got kind of the Malign, either Valley or 6 Pass. I think we kind of talked a little bit about that. Then you're into Skyline. Skyline's well maintained, pretty popular trail, and that brings you pretty much into Jasper. From Jasper, like we talked about, you got kind of the road walk here. There's not much, and then I think kind of really north from here, like you start getting into a bit more of the more remote, more rugged, less maintained trails. I don't know if there's any kind of specific days or particular points, Austin, that were a bit more dicey, but I know there's like it's going to definitely be a different than like hiking section C.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot slower going. Elevation wise, there's way less big climbs. A lot of it is kind of subalpine meadow walking, or sometimes you're even lower elevation than that. But I mean, like Big Shale Hill is a bigger climb, but the biggest kind of standout feature of FNG is the water crossings.
You sort of talked about this before, and you guys said you did a lot of maintenance on the trail. Maybe one of my fears is like being really low in a valley and just really thick stuff, and just trying to find a way. Although I'm, I'm probably psyching myself up for it, or I probably think it's worse than it is. But I've also heard that, it's pretty dense sometimes.
But through FNG, I mean, 100% I suggest you have the Far Out app. We updated it again this year with our latest trail building sections through everywhere, but so the route should be pretty spot on everywhere. With FNG also, like there's a couple spots where like there's not really a ton of giant bush bashing kind of through FNG anymore. Especially, and if there is, it's not going to be sustained for like kilometers and kilometers. So the navigation would be simple. It's like, well, I got to get through this, giant bush that's 100 meters long or whatever, but you can pop out on the other side. We're putting a lot more trail markers in FNG too, so there's a lot more kind of reassurance there. Otherwise, some of kind of the navigation in FNG is you're going to be in kind of like a bigger meadow, and there won't be a ton of markers, but you kind of got to go straight and hang right. I think there's nowhere on the trail is there that complex a navigation.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think I was imagining basically like, okay, you have 350 kilometers of wilderness, no trail at all. But I know that's not the case.
Yeah, no, I mean, almost everywhere through FNG there is a trail. I'd say less than 100 kilometers is off trail on the GDT.
That's not bad.
Yeah. Like truly, there's going to be a lot of spots where you might be kind of alpine along a ridge, and it's like, is this a trail? Is it not? I think that's kind of up in the air, but
that doesn't really count.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that number is getting smaller and smaller every year. Like through FNG, I haven't been through there since work's been done, but there's a lot of trail markers, a lot of trails been built through there. And I mean, knock on wood, but I don't know of anybody ever, really getting in deep crap through FNG due to navigation.
Sounds good. Thank you guys for doing that.
Hey, Austin, one quick question, or Kelly. If you had to pick one campsite on the Skyline section, if you're coming in off of at Moline Lake, or you come in at Evelyn, and you had to make one to sort of split the distance, what would you pick?
I would pick Watchtower because it's way easier to book.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I was thinking too, because it's off trail always. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's the campsite like? Is it half decent, or is it?
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it's in Jasper National Park, so you got all the amenities of a national park campground. But the actual, like, there's not really any great views or anything there. It's more of just a stop off point.
Yeah. You guys have been awesome. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks so much.
No problem. Any last lingering questions from anyone?
I appreciate you guys going over this. Very, very helpful. Thank you so much.
Hey, I have a question for Kelly though. I was wondering what sort of map base or what sort of program he's using. Garmin Basecamp, is that?
Yeah, this is just the Garmin Basecamp, and I have the Backroads map set for BC and Alberta. So, and then I've just uploaded or imported the GDT KML file. So I've got all the GDT routes. But if you zoom in enough, you'll actually see some of the other trails that are in the area.
And are those your personal notations that you've got on there, like things like bear closure to trail and things like that?
No, this is actually I just imported right off the KML file off the GDT site. So I'll upload, I'll kind of re-upload it before I go this summer. But yeah, these are just all the notes that are available on the website. Basically, if you just go on to the under maps, you can actually just the option. You can actually go up here and just say I want waypoints, trail condition bulletins. You can basically just check everything off you want. And then up here where the 3 dots are, you can say download KML.
Sorry, I don't know where your mouse is.
Sorry?
I don't see your mouse, Kelly. Sorry.
You see that? It's like on the top of the red up here where these 3 dots are.
Yeah, I'm seeing file, edit, device, find, view at the top of my screen there.
Oh, just a second. I may have put the wrong share on. So just so if you're on the Great Divide Trail under Go Hiking, we've got maps.
Yeah.
And then if you just expand, view the larger map, so it basically takes you to the full screen version of the route, and you can check. Right now, this just has the main route, but if you want the trail condition bulletins, like this is all the latest updates.
Okay.
You can just select all the stuff that you want, and then up here where the 3 dots are, you can just say download KML file, and then that'll and then you can import it into whatever tool that you want.
Great, thank you.
I've even taken this KML or KMZ file, and I've uploaded it into like Gaia on my phone. So I've got all the track in Gaia as well. And we also share this with Far Out, so to make sure that they get the latest update from our information as well.
Okay.
Adam, you got a last question?
Yeah, it's a quick one. So Nicole, for resupply, this would be
For Bolton?
Yeah, for Bolton. I'll be hiking, I think, like starting in May. Not this trail, like elsewhere, but I'll be basically hiking until the through hike. I've sent her a little email. Although somewhere, I think on the GDT website, I read that she will start responding to them in May. I can kind of email you guys if I don't hear back from her. But just is there another, I don't know if you guys could say something or how I should approach this. Just I would have to send her a package before May, I think.
Yeah, a couple options. She does get back to everybody. I think she just likes to not have GDT stuff on her mind all year long. But she's done it for a ton of people. She's very reliable. Another option she's done in the past is she has done shopping. She'll make you a resupply box if that's what you want, if that's worth it for you, if you're doing another trail in May. She does it just for a few hikers because I think some people hike like Arizona Trail to prep for this or whatever. But that's an option, or you can mail it to her early. It sounds like maybe the best option would be to have her build you one, but she does do that for some people.
Okay, if she gets back to me, it'll be no problem.
Okay. Nick?
Hey, 2 questions regarding maps. Would you recommend it being a good idea to purchase the whole map set from the GDTA or Gear Trade website and carry them on my person for the whole trail, and possibly swapping out with the section that I'll need for that specific section? And do you guys get all the proceeds from the map sales?
We make about 15%. We don't make a ton of money on the maps. Thankfully, we're selling a lot of them, so that's good. But we make somewhere between 15 and 20% on map sales, just to be very candid about that. And what a lot of people did previously, to give you a bit of history on this, is we just had the maps available to download, and people will go get them printed, double-sided, and then just carry each section. So, and then at the end of the section, just recycle all of them. The new maps are way nicer than the paper ones we had before, especially because before they were condensed down so small that they weren't really navigation tools. They were more just kind of an idea on where you are. The new ones are super nice. One thing for a through hike, I don't know if you'd want to throw them out, and so mailing them back to yourself would be frustrating, I think, on a zero, because you don't always have the opportunity to. So I'll kind of let you be the judge. I do think it's pretty good to have a backup map, though, for each section, just in case your phone dies or something.
Right. Okay. And lastly, I have a really good spreadsheet with my whole itinerary and a lot of data points, but what I'm missing is elevation between each campsite and each day. What do you think is the best tool for me to plan that out? Would it be this Garmin application here and then plugging in the KML file and seeing?
Yeah, I find that, like, yeah, for measuring distance and routing, I find Garmin's okay. I actually find Gaia, like the for your phone, it does a fairly reasonable job of if you build a route, of telling you what the elevation will be. And you can use Gaia on a browser as well. So
Okay, great. Would I grab the KML file from the website, plug it into Gaia?
yeah, that's what I've done.
Yeah.
Sure.
Also,
Sounds good.
you can do it through the Far Out app, because that already has it preloaded. I find that's the easiest one to use on trail, because you get notes for each site to be like, hey, the water here is dry. Hey, there's tons of water here, or, bugs are brutal. Hike 2 more K to the next campsite. And then if you go there, you can look at the whole elevation profile between all the sites. So I don't know if it's going to show up. It's not going to show up. But then you can look at the profile. You can also click between 2 links and say what's the distance and what's the gain, and it'll spit it out to you.
And it looks like you can potentially mark off which campsites you plan on staying at, so you can individually see those navigation points as highlighted.
Yeah,
Okay.
like create a custom route. That's the easiest way to do it. And then you just kind of drop a pin at each spot you want to stay.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Oh, just wish everyone luck on Monday and Thursday with everyone's permits, and usually one of us is always on the Facebook site. So if you have any more questions, I'm sure we can provide an answer pretty quickly.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Also, I'll try to be available Tuesday. For Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm pretty full. Let's see. Let me just look at dates. Yeah, Monday and Tuesday, I'll try to be available for Jasper questions as well. Jasper's a little bit more straightforward because there's not nearly as many sites, and you can manage to make it happen. But if anybody has questions, shoot them on over.
Hey, Austin, I just wanted to confirm a telephone number if you've got it handy. It's on the book and on your itineraries that are published on the website. It talks about GDT through hikers phoning a number at Jasper for, like, Klein requires a special reservation and that sort of thing. But the numbers are different between each other, and I was just wondering if you know which one's right. 780-852-6176 is one of them. And then for the McCready, it says call the info center, and it gives you 780-852-6177 extension 2.
Those just got updated by somebody else. I'm just going to look at it real quick. Was this in the campgrounds or the itineraries link?
Geez, I can't remember where I got those, but I've got them in my comment section on my itinerary. So I think it was from one of the itineraries that was in Dustin Lynx's guidebook.
Okay. When did you download the itineraries off the website last?
5 months ago, something like that, maybe.
Oh, I would re-download it. We updated it last week.
Okay. Oh, I'll look at those. Okay, good. Thank you. All right, see you guys later. Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, that looks to be about it. Thanks a bunch for helping us out, Kelly.
No, my pleasure.
All righty.
We'll see you later.
Sounds good. Have a good evening and a good weekend, everyone.
You too.